Taken from the Rays of the One Light, weekly commentaries on the Bible and the Bhagavad Gita by Swami Kriyananda. Week 28, self-reliance versus self-reliance. Truth is one and eternal. Realize oneness with it in your deathless self within. The following commentary is based on the teachings of Paramahansa Yogananda. Last week we considered the need for attunement with God, with the gurus, with the wisdom of others, until we make that wisdom our own. There is a strong and in fact valid belief nowadays in the need for standing on one's own feet rather than depending weakly on the others to carry us by their strength. Swami Kriyananda was once asked, "What is the best yoga posture?" "That one," he replied, "which sets you squarely on your own 2 feet." Our strength must come from within. If that strength comes from the ego, however, instead of from the soul consciousness, it is like a guitar string without its sounding board. The notes it emits will be thin and feeble. Our strength must come from within, but must be coupled with recognition of our inner link with broader and higher realities. The Bhagavad Gita says in the 10th chapter, "Everyone in this world whose life is glorious or prosperous or powerful, know that his achievement is but a little spark from the great sun of my effulgence." Jesus, in talking to his disciples, emphasized also the power of attunement with his own consciousness as a ray of the divine. For this ray had descended already through him in response to their devotion. It was a sign that God was already listening to them with receptive attention and did not require to be wooed in that way any longer. In the passage preceding the one that we read last week, Jesus said, "I am the true vine, and my Father is the husbandman. Every branch in me that beareth not fruit, he taketh away. And every branch that beareth fruit, he purgeth it, that it may bring forth more fruit. Now ye are clean through the word which I have spoken unto you. Abide in me, and I in you. As the branch cannot bear fruit of itself, except it abide in the vine, no more can ye, except ye abide in me." This was the meaning of Paramahansa Yogananda's counsel also, when speaking more intimately to the disciples of the need for attunement with him. Thus, through Holy Scripture, God has spoken to mankind. Om, Om.
Everyone, happy summer. It's really a joy to be here with you. Manisha is here with me. My name is Lorna. Bharati and Dambara are helping us out. It's a beautiful morning. So I have this visual mind. Whenever I read, I have a movie, pictures going on in my head all the time. So these words really fascinate me, so I want you to join me. This Bhagavad Gita reading, it refers to a little spark. So imagine a little spark. It's a teeny, tiny little spark. We've all seen them when you're looking at the campfire, the little sparks that fly off. Even in static electricity, little tiny sparks. They're teeny, tiny, minute, little, brilliant little flashes of light. They're very, very small. And then imagine the sun, this huge, brilliant source of light to our planet, to the entire solar system. The sun, we only have to get a little bit of sun here, and we start sweating, and we start saying it's too warm. That incredible power and energy, that source of life. Without the sun, this planet would be dead. We wouldn't be able to survive. Think of the contrast that the Bhagavad Gita gives us there. And now draw to mind anyone that you know of personally or impersonally, somebody that you admire, somebody that you would describe their life as glorious, or prosperous or powerful. Anyone. Their life is glorious, giving to God, or, prosperous in a way of incredibly successful, powerful, full of energy, vitality. And then realize what this says here. That achievement is but a little spark. Teeny, tiny little spark compared to that light, that divine light, the sun of God's presence, the sun of the possibilities of God's light in our life. It's a pretty amazing thing just to contemplate. Our strength must come from within, but it must be coupled with recognition of our inner link with broader and higher realities. The sun. We have to have in mind that we are linked to that. Our little spark would go out if it weren't for that link to that bigger and broader reality. It's like the little bird in our Festival of Light that we do every week. The little bird flies and thinks that it has this amazing ability to fly. And then eventually, after many storms and everything that happens to it, they say, look to the source of power if you would conquer fear and weakness. The source is not, you don't fly under your own power. And then the source of that power, if we look to that source, it's not to make us quell in our boots, and shake and tremble before that amazing power. Like that scene, I think of that scene in The Wizard of Oz. I am the great and powerful, and Dorothy is standing here, and the Tin Man is rattling, because they're afraid of that power. But the line says, look to the source if you would conquer fear and weakness. It's not to make us more afraid, it's to actually conquer our fears and our weakness. Because when we look to that source and we realize we have a link to that source and that we're part of that sun, then what is there to be afraid of? Because we're part of that. It's not like that's there and I'm here and I have to be afraid. There's a chant, that you all have heard. I am the bubble, make me the sea. I am the bubble, make me the sea. We're not supposed to stay the little spark. We can be aware that we are just the little spark, but we're not supposed to stay small. We're supposed to enlarge our consciousness, increase our awareness, expand our little identity of being that little spark. That little bubble becomes the sea. At the end of the poem that Yogananda wrote about samadhi, about this state of union, he says, I, the tiny bubble of laughter, have become the sea of mirth itself. The tiny bubble of laughter has become the sea of mirth itself. We have to expand. Our job is to expand our awareness and become more and more and more and more and more aware that we're more than that little teeny tiny spark, and that we can enlarge ourselves and become one with that source. There's up to the human level, Yogananda said, the evolution of our consciousness is pretty automatic. The consciousness is asleep in the minerals, the teachings say, dreaming in the plants. You get to the animal level, beginning to wake up. But on the human level, then we have the potential to be fully awake, to be fully aware of who and what we really are. But it doesn't happen automatically anymore, unfortunately. We're not just on this escalator that will just keep going all the way up. Once we get to the human level, then we have free will, then we have choices to make. And then we need to work on it. And we actually need to make choices about what it is we're tuning into and which direction we're going. And what happens naturally, or without, if we don't engage in that process, what happens naturally is the consciousness goes down. Because if you remember Newton's first law of physics, of motion, is that an object at rest will stay at rest unless something acts upon it. Also, if an object is in motion, it will continue to stay in motion unless a force acts upon it. Well, we like to think, as devotees, we're in motion. We're on the spiritual path. We're going for the gold. We're going. And that it'll just keep happening. But unfortunately, there's a force that's there all the time that is acting on our consciousness. In yogic teachings, they call it Maya. In Western culture, they call it Satan. It's gravity. It's inertia. It's disintegration. It's the fact that everything is being pulled down. And it takes a lot of effort to actually keep that moving upward. We can't coast along and say, now I'm on this path, I'm heading home, and the escalator just keeps going. That's what they're talking about in this reading, is that we have to tie ourselves, we have to attune ourselves to something bigger and larger. Otherwise, that other force is going to be what's dominant in our life, and that's what's going to draw our consciousness down and keep us the little tiny spark and keep us small. In Swami Kriyananda's life, he's the direct disciple of Yogananda, and he wrote a plethora of books and teachings and all to help us draw things out of the teachings of yoga. And one of the things he did quite a few years ago, I think this was even before the Little Secrets books that he did, was a little book called 26 Keys to Living with Greater Awareness. Some of you old-timers might remember that. The very first key was the number one. It wasn't just random. He did things with deliberate intent and consciousness. So he pulled out these 26 keys, and the very first one was the most important one. The very first one is be active, never passive, in response to life's challenges. We have to be active. When we're passive, when we take our foot off the gas, when we relax, then Maya, that is the force that starts working. When we are active and we are constantly putting out that energy, that's the way we have to be in order to continue to keep moving in the direction we want to move. I wish David were here, David Eby, who is the choir director, but he's up in Seattle this morning. We have a wonderful choir this morning that sang here. We have an even larger choir that's often here. Some of them are in Seattle this morning. And David is our director who is constantly drawing us together and keeping us moving in the right direction. And he has this thing that he does. He has to do it over and over and over again because we forget all the time. He has this thing where he wants us to carry the phrase all the way through, carry the word all the way through, carry the line of the song, keep going, carry the energy of the song all the way to the end. He's constantly doing this, and we sing and we do really well with it, and then he has to remind us again, because our tendency just naturally is to fall back, is to say, I got this, I know this song, I know the word, it's okay. I don't have to put out any more energy. I started the word will just kind of finish by itself. And it just goes down. And we just have to, he has to remind us over, and I think he will have to remind us forever and ever, because it's just something that you forget. You keep trying to do it, and the song, we all tune into that and say, oh yeah, that's right, of course, we'll do that, we'll sing. And then the song sounds infinitely better because the energy is there carrying you through. And every single word that Swami wrote in that song is given its proper due. And the message is carried out to you and to everyone else and through us. If you let it go backwards, then the energy just kind of dies. And you don't get near the power and the energy out of it at all. So we have to keep carrying it through. And the same thing is true of everything that we do on the spiritual path. We have to keep carrying it through. But as it says in the reading, if that energy is just tied to our ego, to what we think is important, what we think is right, what we think would be really nice and fun and cool and prosperous and will make us happy and will make us comfortable, then, that carries you a little ways, but then Maya tries to convince you that's all you need. And then we come up against reality that says, oh, that's right. It doesn't get us very far. And it inevitably, we crash and burn when that's all we're tied to. So we have to know what is of God, like our affirmation this morning. Discrimination comes in and says, is this of God? Is this wisdom? Is this really taking me where I want to go? We have to tie our consciousness to something, and it's like pulling on a little thread, saying, what is it connected to? Where is it going? If you have a decision to make, if you're upset about something, if you have, if you're not sure of the direction, and you're trying to figure that out, tug on your consciousness like a little string, and just see what is it tied to? Is it tied to my comfort, my well-being, my likes and dislikes of my heart? Or is it tied to God? Is it tied to wisdom? Is it tied to something higher that's going to take me in the direction that I want to go? What is it that I'm connected to, and where is that link? In the Bible verse that we had this week and last week, talking about this very interesting, for us in our modern Dwapara Yuga times, we talk about growing grapes and the vine and everything can sound a little bit foreign. I have a lot of relatives in Napa Valley. I'm going to be visiting them here in a few weeks. Grape growing and grapevines is very much a part of their consciousness and is a part of their life. Everything revolves around the grapes and the rhythms of that natural world. And I looked it up. I looked up just some basic facts about growing grapes and what all is involved, because Jesus uses this deliberately to help teach his disciples. And if you can't relate to it, it's kind of hard to get anything out of it. So it's very interesting because there are some key points in growing grapes, and some of you may be aware of this. We have some grapes growing in our community. One of the first things is it needs support. You need to construct a trellis or an arbor or something for the grapes to grow on. They have to have support, otherwise they're just going to fall all over the ground and get diseased and not grow well. So they need something to grow up on to help them climb higher. And in the first couple years of growing grapes, you don't get fruit. What's happening is they are establishing their root system. You have to have really strong roots to have a big vine that produces a lot of fruit. So what's happening is the growth is happening underneath the ground where it's invisible. And you can't see it, but it's very, very important for the health of the vine. The other thing that happens with grapes is pruning is very, very important. Otherwise, the vines just run rampant, and the canes only produce fruit once. You have to continually cut back and have new vines growing, new canes, new growth in order to grow more grapes. So you have to prune back the plant in order for it to grow and produce fruit. The source that I was reading said, don't be afraid to remove at least 90% of the last season's growth. 90%! You're cutting way, way back on this in order to get the fruit to grow. The more you prune, the more grapes you'll have. Well, here on the spiritual path, at least here in Ananda, what we do is we prune every week. We have a purification ceremony. And what we're doing is exactly that. We're just pruning off the old stuff and throwing it into the fire. Because we're constantly growing new shoots, new pieces of our consciousness, new thoughts, new habit patterns that we really don't need, that aren't going to help us produce the fruit that we want. So we need to prune it. We need to cut it back. We need to get pretty brutal about it and say, not in my life, not on my vine. I don't want it. I want to be able to grow big, beautiful fruit. And the other thing it says, if the grapes aren't ripening, if the fruit is not ripening, what do? You have to pinch back the foliage and allow more light in. The grapes are, no wonder Jesus used grapes as a spiritual lesson. It's full of incredible lessons and symbology for us. If your grapes, the fruit in your life is not growing the way you want, get more light. Add more light. And then you'll get the abundance that you crave. In other words, this takes a lot of work. In other parts of the Bible, they actually refer to the grapevines and the lazy farmers who don't do anything. And the walls that they build crumble. The animals, the wild animals, get into the grapes and tear apart the grapes. Thieves can get in. The vines fall on the ground. They get diseased. Being passive about your grape growing doesn't work. You have to be active, and you have to be on it all the time. And it requires an incredible amount of work and attunement with nature and what is needed, and what do the grapes need now. And the same thing, of course, is true on the spiritual path. The other interesting thing about this verse, these verses that come from John 15 in the Bible, he talks about one of the lines. Here, let me read you one of the lines. I am the vine, ye the branches. He that abideth in me, and I in him, the same bringeth forth much fruit. For without me ye can do nothing. So Jesus isn't speaking here about without me, Jesus, the person. The confusion in the Bible often is Jesus referring to the man, or is Jesus referring to his higher self, the reality of who he really was, the Christ, the living Christ, the actual ray of that light from the sun that came directly from God. So he's not talking about himself as a person, because this whole passage is actually the part where Jesus is talking to his disciples before he's crucified, before he's arrested. So if you go through the story, shortly after this little speech to them, they're in the Garden of Gethsemane, and the soldiers come and take him away. So what he's doing here is he's talking to his disciples, those people who are closest to him, that know who he is and understand who he is. And he goes through this whole long teaching with them and telling them, I'm going away. I'm going to be gone. This is going to be really hard, but this is what you do. He's telling them the answer to the question that a lot of people ask on this path. What if my guru's not in the body? What if I can't talk to my guru and ask him, what do I do next? How do I behave? What about this life crisis? What about that? What about this challenge? Wouldn't it be wonderful if I had a guru sitting right here in my living room just waiting for me to ask questions every time something comes up? What if my guru's not in the body? So he's telling them, okay, I'm going away. I'm not going to be in the body anymore. You've had me here. We've had this wonderful time. We've been learning together and walking together, and we're brothers and sisters together, and you are my friends. But I'm leaving. And he tells them how to behave and what's going to happen. He tells them about the Holy Spirit coming, the Comforter, who's going to guide them. He's saying, I'm not going to be able to do it anymore. So you're going to have to listen. You're going to have to be in tune with me on a different level. You're going to have to listen to the Holy Spirit who comes. I will send the Comforter to help comfort you and guide you. But you're going to have to tune in. Otherwise, you're not going to know. This is going to be hard. There's going to be persecution, there's going to be life's challenges, and you're going to have to continue to be my disciple, but I'm not going to be walking with you every day and sharing meals with you and sitting down and talking to you every night about what's going on. You have to tune in to a different level, and you have to understand that you are connected to the vine. I'm the vine and you're the branches. I will feed you. I will help you. I will comfort you. I will support you. I will guide you. I will give you everything you need. But you need to remember and keep that link, and you need to be aware of what it is that you're connected to. If you don't, I can't help. And that's what all the gurus tell us. If you don't tune in to me, I can't help. If you do, I will do anything that you ask. And he says, if ye abide in me, and my words abide in you, ye shall ask what ye will, and it shall be done unto you. The guru is there just to help, to do anything that's needed to help us get through our karma, to get to that light, to keep going, so that we reach that point where we're not a little spark anymore. We're actually part of the sun. But we have to tune in to them. If you don't have a guru, and you're not sure about that, then you tune in to whatever is higher. You just try to tune into a higher consciousness, whatever inspires you, whatever teacher you think will help take you there, whatever you feel is of wisdom and is of God. That's what you tie your consciousness to. It's not like if you don't have a guru, or you're not sure who your guru is, it's not like you're lost, you can't do anything. You're still responsible for tuning in to something higher and bigger and broader and more connected than you are as a little spark. So tune into that, and it can be anything. The masters of this path gave us so much. We chant I love the Sunday service because it's this little sample of all of it. We have an affirmation, we have the music, we have the chanting, we have the coming together as a community, we have ritual, we have the fire, we have the little bird, we have the arati, and we have the blessing, and there are all these little parts of the path that are all here, so we can take it all and sample it all and say, wow, that really helps. That helps me to feel more in tune with that divine consciousness. I think maybe I should chant more at home. Maybe I should be reading some more of these writings. Maybe I should be listening to Swami's voice. Maybe I should be singing the music. Maybe I could use an affirmation. Maybe I could do a ritual. I can do a fire ceremony at home. These are all little pieces of ways to tune in and remember that vine of consciousness that we're a part of, that we can hold on to, that will help us have abundant spiritual fruit in our lives. If ye, I abide in me and I in you. So he's saying it goes both ways. It's up to us to reach and to tune into the guru, but it comes back. Abide in me and I in you. One of my favorite visualizations that I do that helped me over the years in many, many situations is imagining and visualizing my guru, Yogananda, within me. In my heart, in my mind, in my spiritual eye, inside of me. And then I imagine also that I'm in him. So, my guru, I'm inside him. And it's he that's moving through my life, and it's he that's making decisions, and that it's he that's singing the songs, and that it's he that's doing everything. And I'm going along with him. I'm within him, he's within me. Abide in me and I in you. If we have that, if we do that actively all the time, and when we forget and we drop it, and we pick it up again, and we do it again. And we drop it again, and we pick it up again. Just like in our meditation. We forget the mantra, we come back to the mantra. Our mind goes somewhere else, we bring it back here. We just remember the Guru, God, is there, abiding within us, and we can abide in him. Always. Always, always, always. And I have a reading from Whispers for Eternity for you. That is, I looked and I found one that refers to grapes. This one is number 163. Make me feel that everything is joy. I am the foam of happiness, spumed out of the sea of thy joy. I am the ocean life, bounding with billows of joy. Endless eddies of my laughter spread through all hearts. When the time comes to depart, I will retire to wakeful sleep on the bosom of thy infinite joy, a ripple ever dancing with billows of all joy. I am a bubble of joy, struggling to burst and unite with the ocean of joy. I'm coming to the grapes, don't worry. I feel thy joy in all things. Make me a lighthouse of joy also, guiding storm-tossed vessels of life to safety on the shores of thy joy. Let every vine of my activity bear large grape clusters of thy joy. Let me drink the divine wine pressed from the grapes of all life's little joys. Om, peace, amen.
To do exactly what Lorna was saying, just how to bring God into our lives in every moment. So we're gonna suggest 4 different verses of ways, and then the song unfortunately is not in your chant book, but the answer in each verse you're going to sing along with us. You don't have to stand this time. And it's, in my heart, Lord, ever so silently, I will always think of thee. And then we have a chorus that we'll all sing together as well. Dear God, my God, I am thine for eternity. I am thine eternally. Okay? So, more different words.
Every morning when I greet the sun, when I move forth through crowded ways, in my heart, Lord, ever so silently, I will always think of thee. In my heart, Lord, ever so silently, I will always think of thee. When I laugh, Lord, and when I cry with pain, when my best friends misunderstand, in my heart, Lord, ever so silently, I will always think of thee. In my heart, Lord, ever so silently, I will always think of thee. Dear God, my God, I am thine for eternity. Dear God, my God, I am thine eternally. Though my path lead me over desert sands, though it take me through bitter storms, in my heart, Lord, ever so silently, I will always think of thee. In my heart, Lord, ever so silently, I will always think of thee. When I'm working and when in earned repose, let on victory